I've done races where I've barely touched any nutrition. So the elite races are between an hour to 2 hours, really. So they're not Grand Tour or World Tour level sort of races, or even like, you know, elite racing in the UK where it might be 3 to 5 hours. They're not at those lengths.
But it still could be quite intense for that duration.
Yeah, you're talking like intensity factors of over 90 for an hour. Pretty common to do, like be very close to your limit for a whole hour. There's very little sort of downtime if you're racing indoors. It's there might be a few chilled moments, and again, like tactically, when you're on a team racing indoors is very different to when you're racing on your own. I'd say there's way more tactics indoors that I'm enabled to now because we're all on Discord, we're all on Race Radio. We have a DS who's in our ear as well. Like I didn't have any of that. I didn't have any of that racing in the UK. I mean, you're not allowed race radios in the UK, so the tactics come into play indoors just as much, and then the nutrition comes into play just as much indoors, if not, I would say, equally to outdoors. I think the main importance is making sure you're starting the race fully fueled versus fueling during the race. I've done races where I've barely touched any nutrition, maybe like half of one bottle for an hour's race. You're talking like maybe 30 grams for that 1 hour, and then making sure you're fueling really properly before and being fully loaded before the race, and then also like fueling after the race, because you do get some days where you have sort of two elite races back to back. Like the Zwift World Series race 1 was the day after doing the UCI World Championships semi-finals. So there was two big races, both with weigh-ins back to back, and fueling and planning around that was interesting. You just have to ensure that you're properly fueled and you've gotten enough carbs and you're recovering those carbs. And I think one of the other things is ensuring when you're recovering and taking on that fuel that you're staying warm, so your muscles are maybe taking on that carbohydrate as well, and it's not just going back into the liver.
Tim's probably nodding his head and a big advocate of making sure you're fueled appropriately, especially going into a relatively short, high intensity session. It's I can only relate in racing cross country mountain bike. We're talking an hour and a half race there, and so there's no, if you think about Grand Tour, there's no leading, there's no few hours where, although recently it's been a bit wild, but there's no few hours there where you're, a low intensity, like you're probably straight in, it's pretty high. So everything that you've done leading to that is going to make a difference and be important in that performance, because taking some on board will help, but probably not as much as being prepared appropriately. But maybe you've got some input on that, Tim.
Well, I just was thinking, like, you don't really need me here, because this is like exactly what it is. Like, it's all about fueling before. And I was really scared to hear that he would be having 120 grams per hour during, because then I would have to say that doesn't make any sense. But yeah, like for a shorter event, you basically want to fuel before, because glycogen stores are the most important. So when it comes to like carbohydrates that you ingest during exercise, you need like 90 minutes to basically get your peak oxidation rate. And this is basically your fueling for the recovery during. So when you're racing and you just need to race and be ready for that. So you need to do your homework beforehand. So before the start, fill out the glycogen stores, and during basically just tell the brain, oh, carbs are coming, and go with like 30 grams an hour or something. I was actually just checking yesterday what recommendations we wrote in an article a couple of years ago. And basically when it was like below 90 minutes and it was high intensity, which is what the race would be, it was recommended like 30 grams per hour, 30 to 60 max. No crazy amounts, but glycogen loading beforehand or like really high intake of carbohydrates. And just makes sense because like you're not going to absorb when you're going all out. Like it's just going to cause you GI issues.